High above Earth, hidden behind the shadow of its moon, a silent alien ship floated in the darkness of space, its black surface blended with the stars. Its engines cold, waiting, watching. Inside, tension filled the air. Alien women in dark robes stood around a glowing table, eyes fixed on a single blinking light. That light was Earth. It's a last source of hope for their dying race. It's their people, the Zelyari. Once ruled entire systems, strong, proud, beautiful, but now, their wombs were empty. No child had been born in over 100 years. Their genetic lines were failing. Queen Ralna stood at the center of the chamber, tall and regal, her silver hair braided with golden strands, but her eyes were tired, filled with silent pain. She looked down at the glass container in her hand. It held the last frozen egg from her line, and it was useless without seed, without a compatible male. Her people would vanish. Scan complete, said General Saba, her voice calm but heavy. The human males match our requirements. A quiet gasp passed through the council for generations. They believed humans were too primitive, too violent, but their DNA was raw, strong, and untouched by the cloning sickness that destroyed the Zelyari. Now, that same primitive species held the key to survival. Ralna turned to the screen, where a live view of Earth glowed. "Do we ask them?" she whispered. Sava shook her head slowly. "They will laugh at us, or worse, use it against us. We don't have time," Ralna said, her voice cracking. "My daughters are already weak. Some cannot even rise from their beds." She closed her eyes, remembering her youngest child coughing through the night. The girl who once danced through crystal gardens now lay still, her skin pale, her breath shallow. One council member stepped forward. A younger alien, with teal markings on her skin. "There is another way," she said softly. "We send a small ship. Take one human male, just one, and study him. Try to begin the bond." Silence fell over the chamber. Rana looked at her people, warriors, scientists, mothers, and daughters. Pride burned in their hearts, but fear crept in deeper. This was no longer about dignity. It was about survival. "Prepare the ship," the queen said finally. "If this is the only way, then we must do it." Far below, on Earth, Ethan Cole stirred his tea by the fireplace in a cabin deep in the forest. A former soldier, now retired, he lived alone with his dog, Ranger, in peace. He didn't care much for the outside world, not after what he saw in war. He liked the silence, the routine, the clean air, but that night, something strange crossed the sky. A streak of silver, moving too smoothly, too quietly, Ranger growled, ears pointing up. Ethan stepped outside and stared up at the stars. "Not a plane," he whispered. His instincts kicking in, his hand reached for the old hunting rifle just inside the door. The alien scout ship hovered miles above him, scanning, silent, invisible, inside. The young alien girl named Lyra watched the screen as Ethan's body data appeared. "Strong," she said. "Clean genes, no sickness." He was perfect, but she hesitated. Watching how he knelt beside his dog, how he fed it gently, even laughed when it barked, he wasn't what she expected. Not a brute, not a wild beast. Just kind. "Target locked," the pilot said. "No," Lyra whispered. But the engines had already warmed up. A beam of white light shot down from the sky. Fast, silent, reaching for Ethan. But Ethan was faster. He had wired the trees with motion sensors years ago. Just in case, they beeped red. Alerting him, he rolled behind a rock, the beam hitting empty earth. Ranger barked wildly. Then, Ethan raised his rifle and fired. Not to kill, but to warn. Up in the ship, the console sparked damage to lower panel.
"Ow,"
the pilot shouted. The ship spun out of control, crashing into the trees half a mile from the cabin. Smoke filled the air, sparks flew, and Lyra was thrown from her seat. Ethan ran toward the crash site, rifle ready, not knowing what he would find, and there, among the burning metal and glowing panels, he saw her, tall, strange. Glowing blue veins on her arms, an alien, but her eyes were terrified and pleading. "Please," she whispered, "don't shoot. I came to ask, not to harm." The human pointed his rifle, unsure whether to run, shoot, or help. but something about her voice, her fear, stopped him. The stars above seemed to wait in silence, and deep in his bones, Ethan knew. This night was the beginning of something far bigger than himself. Asterisk smoke curled into the dark sky as Ethan crept closer to the wreckage. His rifle aimed, steady in his grip, but his heart beat like a drum. The crash had shaken the ground. But not as much as the sight before him now. A figure, clearly not human, lay half-buried beneath twisted metal. She wasn't monstrous. Not what movies had prepared him for. In fact, she looked fragile, almost human. Her skin shimmered in the moonlight, a soft lavender tone with faint glowing veins across her cheeks. Her hair, silver and fine, was tangled with debris. She struggled to move, one leg pinned under a crushed beam, but her eyes wide, scared, glowing softly, never left his face. "Please," she said, in a weak, breathless voice, "help me." Ethan didn't lower his rifle. "Not yet. You tried to take me," he growled. "What the hell are you?" "I didn't try to hurt you," she said quickly, wincing as she shifted the others. "They just wanted to bring you in," she coughed, and something like dark violet blood dripped from the side of her mouth. I never wanted to use force." Ethan looked around the wreckage, noting the strange equipment, cracked lights, and humming panels. This wasn't a prank. Not a human aircraft. This was alien, no doubt about it. His instincts screamed to run, to vanish into the forest, but something in her trembling voice kept him there. He stepped closer, slowly, gun still aimed. "If I help you," he said, "you'll answer every question I have." She nodded weakly. "Yes, I promise. Just help me out before the fire spreads." He moved the beam off her leg. Surprised at how light her body was, she cried out, biting her lip hard to stop the scream. Her suit, some kind of smooth alien armor, was torn near her thigh, exposing bruised skin and a glowing wound. Ethan carefully helped her up. Holding her arm, she limped, but kept moving. Leaning on him slightly, together, they made it back to his cabin. He tied her hands gently with rope, not cruelly, just enough to feel safer. She didn't protest. Oni looked at him with exhausted eyes and said, "Thank you," inside the cabin. He sat across from her at the table, rifle beside him. His dog Ranger growled low from the corner, watching her every move. Ethan boiled some water and handed her a warm cup. "You're going to explain now?" he said firmly. "Everything." The girl took a sip, flinched, then nodded. "My name is Lyra," she began, "and I'm not here to invade or destroy." She looked down, then back at him. "I'm here because our people can't have children anymore. And your kind humans might be the only cure." Ethan blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "Cure?" he asked. Lyra hesitated, then said slowly, "Our species was born through cloning, generations of it. But over time, our genes began to break. No new children are born, not for decades now. Our queen believes that human males carry something in their bodies that can restart life for us." Ethan leaned back, eyes narrowing. "So, what? I'm just some kind of breeding stock to you?" Lyra flinched at the word. "No," she said quickly. "That's not how I see you. I swear you were chosen because your genes were clean, unmodified. But I didn't want to take you by force. That was never my choice." Ethan stood up, pacing. This was insane, unbelievable, and yet, here she was, an alien, speaking perfect English, sitting in his cabin. He glanced at the bandages he had wrapped on her leg earlier. Her skin had already begun healing, glowing faintly under the cloth. "And what now?" he asked. "Your ship's down? Your team's gone? They'll come looking?" she whispered. "If I don't report back, more ships will come." Ethan's hand went to his rifle again. "Then I need to leave," he muttered. "Before they burn this whole forest down?" "No," Lyra said, her voice trembling. "Please don't go. If they find me with you and you run, they'll think you hurt me. They'll take you anyway. And it won't be peaceful next time." Ethan stared at her, reading her face. Despite everything, her fear seemed real. Her eyes wide with truth. He had trusted soldiers in his time who looked far more dishonest than this alien girl. He sighed, sat back down. "So what do we do?" he asked quietly. Lyra looked at him, hope flickering in her eyes. "You stay hidden with me. Just for a little while, she said. Let me send a signal to my queen. Tell her you helped me, that you aren't a threat. Maybe then she'll offer a proper choice instead of another capture. Ethan shook his head, chuckled dryly. Yeah, 'cause trusting aliens worked so well already. Still something inside him. Maybe curiosity. Maybe something deeper. Told him this wasn't over. Not even close. He looked at Lyra one more time. And without thinking, said, all right, you've got one chance. The morning sun broke through the clouds, painting the forest in gold and shadow. Ethan stood at the edge of his cabin porch, rifle slung over one shoulder, eyes scanning the trees. Behind him, inside the cabin, the alien girl named Lyra slept uneasily. Her breathing had become steady, but her body twitched now and then, as if she dreamed of things far away or long lost. Ethan hadn't slept. His mind replayed every word she'd said the night before. Humans were compatible, she claimed. Not just biologically, but genetically powerful enough to restart a dying alien species. It sounded like something out of a science fiction book. And yet, she was real. Her wound had closed overnight, leaving a soft blue scar that shimmered in the candlelight. Her body healed fast, unnaturally fast. But the way she had cried when he bandaged her, it wasn't fake, aliens or not. Pain was real, Ethan. Stepped back inside, just as Lyra stirred awake. She sat up slowly. Blinking against the light pouring in through the wooden windows, did they come? She asked quickly, fear flashing in her glowing eyes. No, Ethan said, setting down his rifle. Just birds. And squirrels? She looked around nervously. Then settled when she realized he hadn't run, hadn't turned her in. You stayed. She whispered as if she didn't expect kindness. You actually stayed, didn't have much choice, Ethan muttered, pouring 2 cups of coffee. You and your people made me a target the moment your ship fell out of the sky. Lyra lowered her gaze, ashamed. I'm sorry, she said, for the fear, for the trap. All of it. But I need you to understand something. Ethan sat down across from her again. Arms crossed, I'm listening. Lyra looked down. At her wrist, where a faint line pulsed beneath her skin. She touched it, and a small light flickered. A hologram of a double helix appeared in the air. Spinning slowly. This is our genetic map, she said. The Zelyari genome. Ethan leaned closer, watching as the twisting strands of light spun in front of him. They look broken, he said, noticing the flickers, the jagged edges. They are. Lyra replied. Cloning was supposed to save us from disease and death, but we used it too much, too long, and now our genes are decaying. She changed the image now. 2 strands glowed side by side. One was human, sharp and clean. The other was alien, frayed and hollow. See the difference? She asked. Ethan nodded slowly, silent. Your DNA, Lyra continued, is raw, primal, strong. Human males are among the only known beings with gene structures that can bond with ours. We tried other species, she said softly. They failed. Some died. Ethan stood up and walked to the window, staring at the sky. You said I was chosen, he said, but you didn't just pick me by chance. Did you? Lyra hesitated, then said, no, we've been watching Earth for years, she admitted, learning, observing, analyzing. You were marked because your records showed strong health, no family, no ties, and high reproductive markers. He turned to her sharply. You've been spying on me? Yes, she said honestly, but not to hurt you. We were desperate. Ethan laughed bitterly. So I'm just a walking donation machine to you? No, Lyra said quickly. Standing now, not to me. I volunteered for this mission because I hoped humans were more than what the elders said. She stepped closer, hands still gently tied, eyes wide and honest, and you are for a moment. Silence hung between them. Ranger padded into the room, sniffed Lyra's feet, and gently rested beside her. Ethan noticed, raising an eyebrow. He doesn't trust easily, he said, surprised. Lyra smiled faintly. Neither do I. Outside, a sudden beep echoed through the trees, faint but growing. Ethan rushed to the porch, scanning the sky. A blue pulse shimmered far above a search drone, gliding silently toward the crash site. They're here, Lyra whispered, terrified. Ethan didn't hesitate. He cut the rope from her wrists and grabbed his emergency bag from under the floorboards. "We're moving," he said. "They're not taking me or you today." Lyra grabbed the hologram core and followed him into the woods. They moved. Fast, quiet, using paths Ethan had mapped years ago. Deep in the forest, he had a hidden bunker, part of an old survivalist setup from his military days. They reached it just before the drone scan light passed overhead. Inside the bunker, Lyra collapsed, exhausted. Ethan locked the door, checked his monitors, then finally sat beside her. "You could have run," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "You could have left me, yeah," Ethan said. "But that's not who I am." Lyra looked at him, really looked, and in that moment, she knew he wasn't just human. He was hope, not just for her people's bodies, but for their hearts too. The bunker was silent, deep under the earth. Only the faint hum of old power. Cells and the soft, rhythmic breathing of two very different lives could be heard. Ethan leaned against the cold metal wall, sweat on his brow, his hand gripping the old rifle loosely. Lyra sat beside him on a folded blanket, her back to the steel frame, arms resting over her knees. Eyes tired but alert, neither spoke for a long time. It's not until the overhead monitor flickered and showed a new ship landing, larger, darker. And royal in design, Lyra's face paled. Her voice came out as barely a whisper. "That's her." "My mother," Ethan turned to her quickly. "You didn't say your mother was." "A queen. I didn't want you to think I was part of some trap," Lyra said quietly. "But she's here now. She must have tracked my signal and followed the distress." Ethan's heart pounded. "I thought you said you'd contact her peacefully." "I did," she replied, "but she won't wait. She's afraid. More desperate than I've ever seen her. She'll come here herself, not to fight, but to offer something." Ethan looked at her, eyes narrowing. "Offer what?" Lyra met his gaze with seriousness. "Everything," she said. "Anything. If it means saving our people." Hours passed before the earth shook slightly and a voice echoed through the trees outside the bunker. It was feminine, powerful, and strangely filled with sorrow. "Human male, we do not come to steal you," the voice called out. "We come to beg." Ethan stepped outside, rifle slung behind him, every muscle tense, and standing there, surrounded by armored alien women and glowing trees, was Queen Raelna. She was taller than Lyra, cloaked in deep purple and silver, her eyes bright gold. But they were not filled with pride. They were filled with pleading. She walked forward slowly, without. Guardsman dropped to one knee before Ethan. "I am Queen Raelna," she said, her voice shaking, "and I come without weapons. My daughter lives because of you. Or people may live because of you." Ethan didn't speak. Stunned by the sight of royalty kneeling in his woods, Lyra stood nearby, unsure if she should bow or speak. The queen reached into her robes and placed a small crystal device at Ethan's feet. "This," she said, "contains our last functional embryo vault, waiting for activation. But without human seed, it is dust." Ethan stepped back, heart pounding. "You want me to be some kind of breeder?" Raelna looked up, sadness in her golden eyes. "No," she said softly. "I want you to be our partner. You will not be forced," she continued. "You will not be imprisoned. You will live freely or walk away." He looked around. Guards watched from the tree line, but none moved. They were really here without weapons raised. "I've been lied to before," Ethan said coldly. "Used, betrayed, pushed into war. If I agree to anything, I need promises. You will have them," Raelna said. "You will be honored not as a tool, but as the one who gave life back to a dead world." Still, Ethan's mind raced. Could he trust them? Could he believe that this wasn't some longer con? Then Lyra stepped forward and stood beside him. "Whatever you choose," she said gently, "I'll stand with you." For a long time, he said nothing. Then finally, he spoke. "Fine," he said, "I'll help. But on my terms." Raelna stood slowly, her regal figure towering. "Name them," she said. "1. Ethan said. "No other humans will be taken ever." 2. "I am not your property. And I walk away the moment I feel otherwise." And 3. "If this works, Your people will treat Earth with respect. No more spying, no more sneaking around. Ralna nodded once, solemn and sincere, agreed. She said, "This is not just about survival, Ethan Cole. This is about changing who we are and becoming something better." He still didn't trust them fully, but something in her eyes, the pain, the weariness told him she wasn't lying. Lyra smiled quietly, and for the first time since the crash, Ethan felt warmth return to his chest. Not love, not yet, but hope. The Queen raised her hand, and a smaller ship descended silently nearby. It was meant for Ethan and Lyra, a symbolic gesture, the beginning of a new bond. As the stars above watched, Ethan whispered to himself, "What the hell did I just agree to?" Lyra chuckled beside him. "Maybe," she said. "You just became the father of a new future." The royal transport ship moved quietly through the upper atmosphere, glided without sound, smooth as glass, wrapped in soft violet lights that shimmered like silk under the stars. Ethan sat near the front window, staring down at Earth slowly. Disappearing beneath him, he gripped the armrest tightly, not from fear of flying, but from the weight of everything he had agreed to. Beside him, Lyra watched his face carefully. "You're quiet," she said gently. "Regret?" Ethan shook his head, eyes still locked on the clouds. "Not regret," he said, "just wondering what I've gotten myself into." Lyra smiled faintly, then turned her gaze forward. "You're not alone anymore," she whispered. "That matters." When the ship docked, it wasn't into some sterile lab or prison. It was a lush biodome glowing with natural light and fields of silver grass. Tall crystalline towers stretched toward the ceiling like trees carved from diamonds. Ethan stepped out and alien children ran past him, playing, laughing, though none younger than a teenager. He noticed the silence under their joy. No toddlers, no babies, no pregnant mothers, just youth fading into age, and then nothing. "This is where we prepare for healing," Ralna said. Walking toward him in ceremonial robes, she looked tired, but hopeful. "You are not just a solution, Ethan," she said softly. "You are a symbol," he frowned. "A symbol of what?" "Of choice," she answered. "Of dignity, before. We tried to solve this with machines, with cold science, without care for the soul. But you changed that." Ethan was led to a quiet room surrounded by windows and soft music. There were no guards, no locked doors, only peace in one corner. A console displayed the embryo vault, glowing orbs waiting for activation. But the Queen made no demands. She simply asked him to rest and decide when he was ready over the next few days. Ethan met others, not warriors, but women, doctors, teachers, engineers, artists, all of them unable to carry life, and yet they treated him not like a product, but a guest. They asked questions, laughed at his jokes, told him stories of stars and oceans made of light, but it was Lyra who stayed closest. She became his shadow, his translator, his guide. They talked at night in the gardens, where floating flowers pulsed with blue light. Sometimes she cried and he listened. Sometimes he spoke, and she held his hand in silence. One evening while watching the stars, Lyra whispered, "Do you still feel like we're using you?" Ethan took a deep breath. "No," he said honestly. "Not anymore. Back on Earth. I was just a guy in a cabin," he added, "but here, I feel like I matter." "You do?" she said, her voice almost a whisper to me. "You always will." The next day, Ethan made his choice. He entered the chamber alone and touched the console. The machine responded instantly, scanning his DNA and matching it to the embryos. A soft hum filled the room, and the lights began to glow brighter. The chamber accepted his gift. Not stolen, not forced, but given. News spread quickly.
"Oh yes."
Scientists wept as the first embryo sparked into full life, alive, stable, ready to grow. The Queen fell to her knees in gratitude, whispering prayers to stars long thought dead, and across the biodome. A wave of joy spread through the halls like fire and dry grass, but not everyone celebrated in the outer rings of their empire. Certain factions called it betrayal. They didn't want human blood mixed with their ancient lines. They didn't care if it meant extinction. They wanted pride, not peace. One message came through a secure channel. A a cold and brutal warning. "Stop the mixing, or Earth will burn." Ethan read the message on the console. Fists clenched. "I knew it wouldn't be that easy," he muttered. Lyra stood beside him, her voice calm but steady. "Then we fight for it," she said. "This life you gave, we won't let anyone take it away." Ralna called an emergency meeting. No more hiding, no more secrets. The plan was clear. Earth and the Zelyari must unite or fall divided, and at the center of it stood one man, a human who came from a wooden cabin in a forest. Now, a father of hope, a symbol of choice, and a reason to fight for a better tomorrow. Ethan looked around at the alien faces. No longer strangers, no longer just females in need. They were his people now. And he would protect them, not as a tool, not as a breeder, but as something far more powerful: family. Asterisk, the sky above the Zelyari dome turned red, not from sunset, but from fire. Bright streaks cut across the atmosphere as unauthorized ships entered their territory. Alarms echoed through the crystal towers, and the once peaceful halls became shadows of panic. Ethan stood on a high balcony, watching it unfold. Lyra was beside him, a communicator pressed to her ear, her face pale with dread. "It's them," she whispered. "The outer bloodline clans. They've broken away. They're attacking their own people." Ethan asked, struggling to believe it. "They believe purity is more important than survival," she said. "They would rather die than let a human see the future." He clenched his fists. After everything he gave, the risk, the trust, the hope, they still wanted to tear it all down? "Where's the queen?" he asked. "In the command chamber," Lyra said. "Come, she needs you." They ran down the glowing halls, past crying engineers, past worried scientists who carried embryos in sealed glass. This wasn't just a civil war. It was a strike at the future itself, and Ethan knew, deep inside, he was the target. When they reached the chamber, Queen Ralna was already giving orders. Her calm voice echoed across the floor. "Secure the embryos, lock all travel ports, and prepare shield frequency shift." She turned to Ethan, eyes tired but burning with fire. "They want you dead," she said plainly, "and they will stop at nothing." Ethan stepped forward. "Then let me help." Ralna raised an eyebrow. "You are not a soldier anymore." "No," he replied. "I'm something worse, a stubborn human with too much heart." She allowed herself the smallest smile. Then, "You'll need this," she said, handing him a weapon unlike any Earth rifle. Small, sleek, and humming with power, it only activates for those with bonded DNA. Ethan took it, surprised when it lit up in his hand. The machine had accepted him, just like the embryos. Maybe he really had become something more. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the dome, and the ground trembled. A group of rebels had breached the eastern wall. Ethan rushed to a surveillance screen and saw them armored, masked, and furious. They carried EMP weapons, designed to fry both machines and life support systems. They're heading for the embryo vault. An officer cried out. Ethan didn't wait for permission. He grabbed a small team and raced down the hallways with Lyra close behind. She moved like a shadow, quick and focused. Her people were at stake, and she wouldn't let them die. Not now. They reached the vault corridor, just as the rebels blasted through the final door. Sparks flew and screams echoed through the halls. One of the scientists tried to shield the vault with her own body and was thrown aside. Ethan aimed the alien rifle, but it didn't fire bullets. It released a pulse, strong, silent, and blue. 3 rebels flew back. Stunned but alive, he rushed forward, shouting, "This ends now." One rebel turned helmet off, eyes burning. "You are the infection," he spat. "You pollute our future." Ethan didn't flinch. "No," he said, "I gave you one." A second blast followed, this time from Lyra, who stepped forward and stunned the rebel with precision. The rest fled. Realizing they were outmatched, not by force, but by resolve, once the vault was secured, Ethan stepped inside, looking at the glowing capsules. Each one held potential, not just for the Zelyari, but for unity between 2 worlds, a future that now had to be defended, not just created, hours later. As cleanup began, Ralna addressed her people from the grand platform. This betrayal, she said, voice echoing across every screen and speaker, was not caused by humans. It was caused by fear, pride, and blindness. She looked at Ethan, standing beside her with dirt on his face and a rifle in his hand. This man, she continued, did not come to conquer. He came when we called for help. Her words rippled across the galaxy, some in awe, others in anger. The Council would respond, and Earth would eventually learn the truth. But for now, something stronger than politics began to grow. Trust. Later that night, in the quiet garden where floating petals drifted like stars, Ethan and Lyra sat together again. He looked at the stars, then at her. Still think it was smart to bring me here? He asked, half smiling. Lyra leaned her head on his shoulder. I think, she whispered, you were always meant to be here. He didn't answer. But inside something warmed. He was no longer just a man in a cabin. He was a warrior again, but this time, fighting for life. A soft breeze blew across the silver fields of the alien city. Petals from sky flowers floated through the air like glowing feathers. The war was over, the rebellion crushed, but the memory of fire still lingered in the hearts of many. And yet among the pains, something new had taken root. Hope. Ethan stood beneath a tall crystal tree, its branches humming softly in the morning light. He wore simple clothing now. No armor, no weapon, just peace around him. Alien children ran laughing through the fields, and their voices rang like music. But something was different today, something sacred. Lyra walked toward him slowly. Her eyes shining with nervous joy, she held a small bundle in her arms, wrapped in glowing cloth. And warmth? Her steps were careful, but steady. Ethan turned, and their eyes met. It's time, she whispered. He nodded, heart pounding, unsure what to feel. Lyra stepped closer and gently placed the bundle in his arms. He looked down, breath caught in his throat. There, blinking up at him with curious gold and blue eyes. Was a baby their baby? Not just Zelyari. Not just human. But something entirely new. A life created not from war or control, but from choice, respect, and sacrifice. She's beautiful, Ethan said. Voice shaking, Lyra nodded, her voice soft. She's the first in 200 years, the child cooed, tiny fingers wrapping around Ethan's thumb. He couldn't speak, couldn't move, only feel the weight of that little hand like a galaxy pressing into his soul. Behind them, Queen Ralna stood in ceremonial robes. Surrounded by elders and youth alike, she stepped forward and placed her hand on the baby's head. Let her name be Elion, she declared, the name of rebirth. Cheers rose through the fields, and a melody played through the towers. Today was not just the birth of a child, it was the beginning of a new age. Later, at the Great Council Dome, leaders from Earth and the Zelyari stood side by side for the first time. Screens across both planets broadcast the moment as Queen Ralna spoke. We once hid in shame, she said, but today we stand proud. We were broken, but through one man's kindness, we are whole again. Ethan stepped forward, uncomfortable in the spotlight, but brave as ever. I never meant to be a hero, he said honestly. I just helped someone who needed it. But if this child and those two can grow up in a galaxy where trust matters more than power, then I've done enough. Applause rang across. Stars and the Human Zelyari Alliance was officially born. Trade opened, culture shared, and both worlds began to heal together. But Ethan didn't stay in the spotlight. He returned to the quiet garden with Lyra and baby Elion. They lived simply, raising their daughter in peace. Teaching her both Earth stories and star lore, she would grow up learning disguise. Two hearts and one truth, kindness creates the strongest future. One night, years later, Elion sat in Ethan's lap under the stars. Daddy, she asked, are you really the reason I was born? Ethan smiled, brushing her silver blue hair aside. I didn't make you alone, he said gently. You were made by hope, by love, and by a promise I gave to your mother. What promise? She asked, tilting her head. That no matter what happened, he said, I would never let her people die without a future. And now, he added, you are that future. She giggled, hugged him tight, and pointed up. Can we visit Earth one day? Of course, Ethan said, holding her close. And when you do, tell them everything. Not about me, but about what we became, far above. Da 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 ra da 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 fa sama dam sam 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 dam sam sam dam sam da bam da bam da 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 bam da 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 ba da ba 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 da da. Not by armies or machines, but by one man's decision to stay. From one forest cabin came a legacy that echoed across galaxies. And in the arms of a hybrid child rested the strongest bond the stars had ever known, not human, not alien, but family.